that Speaker Ryan owns this bill. And I think that he owes it to the president to make sure he's listening to all sides. House leadership has to come together in an honest moment of reflection and say, we must work with our entire conference to get this bill passed, because we cannot have President Trump's momentum derailed by poor communication skills in the House caucus.
So that's the interesting piece here. What happened? Why did they think everyone was on board? Why did everyone in the White House think that, you know, this is a consensus plan, the Paul Ryan plan, everyone's on board, this should be able to sail right through Congress? Turns out that wasn't the case.
Right, and I think there are a lot of Americans that are watching this play out, and they're angry because the Republican leaders have talked for 7-8 years about repealing Obamacare. Remember Michelle Bachmann when she ran back in 2012? I mean, that's all she talked about on the campaign trail.
Mitch McConnell said, rip it out, root and branch.
Yeah, and here we're seeing with, even among Republicans, there's real deep disagreements on how to move forward.
Sarah Palin this morning, her statement saying that this is socialism, that this plan is a socialist plan, that this is not repeal and replace.
And here's what I think Republicans need to understand. They're not going to get any Democratic votes. They might get a few onesie-twosies, that's all fine. Even the current proposal, which conservatives deem as not going far enough, is not receiving any Democratic support. So what I think what David Bossie and others are saying is take the time to consult with the Freedom Caucus members. We bowled yesterday. There's going to be a bowling summit on Tuesday at the White House with Freedom Caucus members. What input can they get to make sure the bill is palatable to conservatives as well as other Republicans, that it fully repeals but also replaces in a quality way so that they can pass it through the House and the Senate, knowing that Democrats are going to be obstinate.
Because here's the thing, if they can't come together and agree on this and find a way forward, the alternative is keeping Obamacare. That's the only other reality here. If they can't get anything else passed, right?
And not doing other things on the agenda that comes.
Or tax reform and other things they're talking about.
Well, we have Representative Mark Sanford, House Freedom Caucus member. He's coming up in just a few minutes here to tell us what he wants and what this bill needs to look like for him.
That's the question. Are there one or two things that can be tweaked where they'd say, okay, we're on board now? If that were to happen, I think it would open the floodgates for some momentum.
One thing I think everyone agrees on, though, is more competition in the marketplace, right? Giving people more options when it comes to insurance and their plans, bringing the quality up, bringing the cost down, and being able to cross state lines to say, you know what, if I'm in New York and I want that plan that's over in Arizona, I should be able to get that plan if it's better for me and my lifestyle and my family. It seems like that's something that all Republicans can get on board with and are attracted to.
No, I think you're exactly right. Well, speaking of competition and alternatives, yesterday we told you about a book written about reasons to vote for Democrats, and it was, of course, full of 260 blank pages, right?
And we had the author
on for Democrats.
Yeah, we had the author Mike Knowles yesterday, and look at that. You thumb through it; it's totally empty, except for the bibliography, which has interesting footnotes and sightings.
Self-published, by the way, because I don't think anyone was going to take it.
And it went to #1 on Amazon. It's still #1 on Amazon. The most purchased book in the world right now is Blank Pages About Why You Should Vote for Democrats. Some of the reviews are amazing, though, when you go to Amazon.
Yeah, this is what Aaron says. He says, this book will leave you speechless. I read it every night before bed, and it gets better every time. There's a reason it's the #1 bestseller. 10 out of 10 will read again.
And a review from Brandon says, absolutely riveting. Knowles clearly put in some serious legwork, and every page will leave you begging for more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's highly researched. And Anonymous wrote this review. The word excellent doesn't even do this justice. So not to be left out in the cold, Democrats decided to do the same thing and release their very own Reasons to Vote for Republicans book. Basically, it's an exact ripoff of the Republican version, the Mike Knowles version.
Can you sue for that?
No. I mean, it's got 1.5 stars right now. And
1.5 stars.
Reviews are pouring in.
Though.
And it's ranked 45,000th on Amazon. Turns out when you don't have any new ideas or ideas of your own, people don't want to buy a book with no
and like comedians, there's a rule in comedy. You don't rip off other comedians' jokes, and that's a joke. It was a joke book. That was why Michael wrote it. And so, reviews from Jeff writing this, too bad he couldn't think of this on his own. Typical.
It's actually kind of embarrassing. I mean, this is the same exact book, right? And it got 1.5 stars.
Yeah. That's right. And another one here from Eric says, not as good as Reasons to Vote Democrat, less content, less meat on the bone. Overall, a very disappointing book, a Me Too book.
And a review from Ryan saying, simply put, there are no good points in the book. It's like talk radio. There's a reason why conservatives dominate talk radio, because it's based on ideas and you can talk about it for 3 hours. With the left, there's a lot of copycatting, a lot of nothingness. And so when you write a book about it, it's actually not that funny because it's kind of true.
A book of nothingness. Well, Clayton wants to do the book on tape. Audio.
Yeah, I offered. I said I'd be happy to do the audiobook version of it.
Where you literally just read the bibliography at the end.
I just say, hi, this is Clayton. You're listening to this book, and then you're going to have 4 hours of empty space. It'll just be white noise, like you put a baby to sleep.
Chapter 4, the economy.
Right, empty.
All right, it's still #1 on Amazon, by the way. We've checked this morning. So.
And the Democrat version is still somewhere between 45,000 and 86,000. What number is it right now? Nobody knows. 45,000, I think.
We'll give you both.
No one really cares.
We do have some other headlines to bring you this morning, starting with a Fox News alert, and this is breaking overnight. A Cincinnati police officer shot in the line of duty. Investigators, they say 2 officers were responding to a domestic violence call just after midnight when the suspect opened fire, hitting one of the officers. The cops shooting back, hitting the suspect multiple times. Both men now undergoing surgery. They are expected, though, to be okay. And the security breach of the White House, even more serious than first reported. 26-year-old Jonathan Tran allegedly scaling the fence, eluding multiple layers of security, almost making it to the entrance carrying mace and a letter for President Trump. Tran telling Secret Service that he was a friend of the president and that he had an appointment. Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino joined us earlier in the show saying he is concerned for the president's safety. Listen.
The problems here with the Secret Service are really sclerotic management, a serious brain drain in the Secret Service, and an inadequate security plan. He's not safe in there.
Tran is set to be in court tomorrow and is facing up to 10 years in prison. And the FBI ramping up its investigation into who leaked classified CIA documents to WikiLeaks. Contractors being questioned in Virginia who developed the top secret programs that designed to hack into smartphones and household technologies. Officials say anger over job cuts may have been the driving force behind that leak. No one has been detained so far. And take a look at this. A moose is on the loose on the slopes.
It's chasing us. Oh my God, I don't know where to go.
Could you imagine that thing running towards you? The massive moose caught running alongside 2 girls snowboarding down a mountain in Colorado. Both obviously shocked to see the wild animal, making sure to stay out of its way. It's beautiful, though. It's really a beautiful animal.
Beautiful, but those things can be nasty.
Oof.
And they're that fast and big.
You could take him, Pete. I'm convinced.
No, I would go low, go for his legs. That's what you do with guys that are bigger than you. Go for the legs real quick. Hope he fumbles over, and then you got a chance.
Smart football move.
That's it. That's how we do it. All right, 46 attorney generals forced to resign. What Obama holdovers should be next? Should the president take more steps to get rid of other government and political appointees? Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, will join us live this hour to talk about that.
And they may be man's best friend, but is your dog manipulating you to get what they want? Yes, they are. Your emails are pouring in on this one. Keep them coming. We want to hear from you.
Are you happy now? Are you happy now? I don't want to know, no, who's taking you home, home, and loving you so, the way I used to love you, no, I don't want to know, who's taking you home, and loving you so, the way I used to love you.
Party at the White House looking to pick up some spare votes, you might say, from Republicans still split over the current plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Here's the president on Friday.
This is the time we're going to get it done. We're working together. We have some great results. We have tremendous spirit. And I think it's something that's just going to happen very shortly. So thank you all very much, and we're going to get to work.
So, can President Trump convince stubborn Republicans from the House Freedom Caucus to play ball? Let's ask South Carolina Congressman Mark Sanford, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, who I'm told will be there on Tuesday night at the White House meeting with the president. Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
So what is your message going to be to the president? What are you looking for? What needs to change specifically in order to get your support for the Ryan bill?
Well, I think that all of us, whether it's Mark Meadows or Jim Jordan or other members of the Freedom Caucus, are looking for any way possible to get the yes. Let's begin with that premise. And then what we're simply saying is, how do we infuse more in the way of conservative principles and ideals, free market principles, to that which has been laid out in the health care plan? So a number of things. For instance, no blank checks. If you look at Medicaid expansion as it currently configured in the bill, what it amounts to is an open blank check from the taxpayer to folks out there. I was a former governor. I've seen firsthand the way folks will grab federal funds if they're out there. It's a long window right now. What we've said is let's shorten that window, because if not, you're going to create a rush for the door with people saying, wait a minute, here's another chance to grab federal funds. But the problem is it's got my and your name on the check itself.
The taxpayer says, let's use a sports analogy here for folks. I mean, are we at the 50-yard line? Are we at the 20? Are we at the 5-yard line as far as how close you guys would be to Speaker Ryan on getting to a deal?
I mean, I think we're at the maybe the 20-yard line. I think the bill has some good in it, but it's also, make no mistake, from a conservative's perspective, it's got some real bad in it. I mean, this notion of refundable tax credits, conservatives for years have railed against the idea of the earned income tax credit. Earned income tax credit has about 25 million folks on the rolls. We're talking about something here, in this case, that probably involves closer to 40, 50 million people on the rolls. And once somebody gets a check to their house, and it's not quite that, but more or less, once somebody gets a check coming to them, it's really difficult to turn around. That's why they call them entitlements. And so the idea of a new expansion on the entitlement front when we can't pay for the existing promises that are already on the table, I think is problematic from a conservative's perspective.
Congressman, some have said, like Senator Rand Paul have said, the bill is dead on arrival. You and some others have said maybe it's the opening bid from President Trump in an ongoing deal, in a negotiation. So you're hoping it's an opening bid, still open for discussion, and believe that if it's on the 20, you can punch it into the end zone here in a matter of time if things are worked out.
The key is to get a few other things worked out. I think conservatives around this country want to see conservative ideals in any health care measure that moves forward. If not, at the end of the day, we don't impact the cost curve. And as a consequence, from both a policy standpoint and a political standpoint, there could be, I think, disastrous consequences.
Well, I think that's an important point. If the principles that you believe in are not inserted and therefore the policy doesn't change and people's lives aren't impacted positively, it's not going to matter what's passed in the first place if it doesn't ultimately work. So,
I mean, yeah, it'd be, I mean, a Pyrrhic victory. I mean, we celebrate, oh, we got health care done, but if people don't see the cost of what they're dealing with now go down, they don't see better choices, more in the way of availability. I mean, in South Carolina, we've gone from 3 providers down to 1 just over the last couple of years.
Choice.
Inflation last year was 29%.
And that's, of course, what happened to the Democrats when they passed a bill and found out what was in it in 2010. Congressman Mark Sanford, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Almost promoted you. All right, still ahead. A new report says Democrats may abandon the investigation of Trump's ties to Russia because, listen to this, they're worried Republicans may make it too partisan. Wait, aren't Democrats to blame for that? And if you ever wanted to sneak across the border, just ask an illegal immigrant in this new video game. Lines for you. A music icon dies mysteriously.
We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters.
Certainly a classic. Joni Sledge, one of the founding members of the vocal group Sister Sledge, found dead in her Arizona home. Investigators not releasing the cause of her death, but the band's spokesperson says she was not ill. Joni Sledge was just 60 years old. And Dog the Bounty Hunter may soon be hunting down his own thief.
If you want to rock and roll,
Give me a reason.
we got the guitar. We're ready.
Police say someone stole $5,000 from a hotel room where he and his wife Beth were staying in L.A. Nothing else was stolen, so police are trying to determine if it was an inside job or maybe the Russians. Clayton, Abby, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Well, the Intelligence Committee's top Democrat calling for bipartisanship in the investigation of potential ties between Russia and President Trump's campaign.
We ought to make every effort to do this in a thorough and objective way. And if we can, that is the best thing for the country. And if we get to the point where we can't, then we need to speak out about it.
Well, now some of the panel's Democrats, they say they may walk away from the probe because of its credibility. But isn't the whole thing partisan to begin with? Here to weigh in is former CIA operative Mike Baker. Good to have you here, Mike.
Thank you very much. Morning.
Yeah, isn't that the point? I mean, they're looking into something that they're trying to prove was partisan from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I mean, to hear Congressman Schiff, one of the most partisan members of Congress, talk about his concern over this and not being even handed in a House Intel Committee review is kind of sadly amusing. Look, this is important, right? I mean, I think the general public understands the need to shed some light, get some transparency on the issues that have been swirling around Russia, and in particular Russia's meddling in the campaign during the past year. And that's an important thing to worry about, obviously. I would argue that the Russians have been doing this for generations.
Right.
But let's look at it. The thing is, I have a lot more faith in the Senate Intel Committee's ability to do this in a less partisan manner. Senators Burr and Senator Warner are very pragmatic. I think they will lead the Senate Intel Committee's investigation in a more even-handed manner than we could ever imagine could be done from the House.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We absolutely need to look into this. I mean, people said we need to look into Hillary Clinton's emails. We need to look into whether or not the Russians meddled in our election or not. That's incredibly important. Representative Jackie Speer had this to say on the